Welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Gary Sheffield Jr. This is Yankees Unloaded, and guess what? The Yankees finally won a game again, okay? And furthermore, they not only won a game, they won 14-4 against their rival Boston Red Sox, first off. Second, they came back in a game that they were down 4-3. And third, their rookie first baseman, who at one point was platooning for JD Davis.
That's what they told us.
He just hit 3 bombs in a game. Okay. He was so elated, but he was so in the moment. They had to show him how to do a curtain call. Okay.
Oh yeah. He was trying to run through the fence in the dugout, which is what happened. And I'm glad they showed that on the broadcast. He had no idea where to go. And it just kind of goes to show you how much youth he has. I mean, they did talk about it. He looks like Tom Holland. They didn't say he looked like Tom Holland, but I did. He looks like he's 13 or 14 years old. Yeah. And the crazy part about that is that he's the energy of this team right now. Obviously, Juan Soto's been the staple. Obviously, him, Aaron Judge, they've been the key cogs in this lineup. And everybody else is just kind of below average, not very energetic, not really bringing the energy. Ben Rice is that energy. And you have to give, I guess you got to give Brian Cashman some credit today. In hindsight, bringing Ben Rice and bringing a young player up who, frankly, and you mentioned this, he's hit in every single level he's played at. This is not a player who was in high A, double A, triple A, hitting 245. We did that with Dominguez. Dominguez was more of a projection who turned out in the big leagues. Ben Rice has raked every stop of the way. And everyone said, what do we do with him? We've got Rizzo at first base. This is obviously pre-injury. And then Rizzo goes down. We bring Ben Rice up. He has the versatility to also catch. Okay. We also have discussed this. Having said this, the mechanics of Ben Rice are spectacular. His swing is short. His mechanics are simple. And he's energetic. He's going to bring it every day. And we've said this before. Everyone knows that you can go out and make big trades. You can go look at Bellinger in Chicago. You can go talk about guys out of Miami who we can make additions here and there, and all that's fair. But when you've got guys down in your system who are performing at positions of need, you've got to make the call. You've got to have the guts and give him an opportunity. This is a Dartmouth kid putting on a show for the New York Yankees. He seems like he's ready for this moment. Now, we don't know how long this is going to last, but we have all the reason to believe that this is a player that might be part of the future long-term for the Yankees. You've got to be excited.
Exactly. I think, today was kind of one of those days where, Ben Rice, we were talking about it. We had no issue with the lack of power that we had seen in the majors because every single swing was consistent. Okay. It wasn't a golfing swing and he wasn't, killing bugs in, the infield dirt. You
text me this after his first homer. You said these aren't even big swings, and you're absolutely right.
No, he's swinging the same way. Just the reality is, if you're a good enough hitter, your plain flat swing can still hit. You can hit 30 bombs if you're hitting it the right way. I mean, we always see it, the StatCast when they're coming through in the zone. If you're making contact with the ball at this point and the bat's not in the middle, this point, you're not hitting a home run. In the middle, you're probably not hitting a home run. It's when you get it out. You get it out just a little bit of, protrusion into the zone. And that's when you have liftoff. No matter how, straight your swing is, we see it all the time in the home run derby. We're like, you see it in slow motion. It's a thing of beauty because it's not a lot of, casual audience might think, oh, when you hit the bat, the barrel, and you have it just right in the middle of home plate, and that's when you're hitting the ball. You can hit a home run like that. We've seen Judge do it, but the reality is you want the bat to be a little bit out in front to give it that launch. And so that's what we saw on all of those home runs with Ben Rice, and that's what we call perfect timing. So, look, Ben Rice had 7 RBIs today. I got to give him a nickname because of it, because he's very good. The irony of the nickname is his name is Ben Rice, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't get any shorter than that. But I'm going to start calling him Benny Basmati. I've already done it. I eat enough basmati rice for that to be in my mind, and that's the first thing I thought of. Nothing like Uncle Ben's basmati. Just I saw
That's
people
fair.
were making the photoshops and stuff.
Yeah. No, okay, but do you realize this is another thing that we need to discuss about in terms of how this projects, okay? Because everyone's excited about 3 homers, okay? And there are not many players in the big leagues who can do that. Obviously, Will Smith for the Los Angeles Dodgers, great player in this league.
He just
hit
did
3 homers yesterday.
Last night.
Yeah, he did it last night, right? These are really good players in this league to be able to make that type of accomplishment. This is the first time a Yankees rookie in the history of this organization's done that, his rookie year, ever. It's never happened before. So I want to say this about Ben Rice in terms of his projection. When we're talking about the league making adjustments, because there are going to be people in our comment section and many other comment sections who say Major League Baseball will make an adjustment to a player. It doesn't matter who you are. They're going to find it. Mike Trout came into this league. He took the world by storm. They found out he doesn't like the ball up. There was an adjustment period. He didn't fall off the face of he didn't fall off the face of the earth, but what did happen, there was a small adjustment period that he had to make. He had to actually make that cognizant decision. I am going to take that pitch away. Ben Rice, at some point or another, there's going to be a point where they start pitching around him. Now, it may not be tomorrow. It may not be next week against Baltimore, but I'll say this. When they start picking the corners and they start throwing the ball off the plate, one thing's for certain, there's not many of those players who have Juan Soto sitting behind him. And Juan Soto was essentially lifeless today. He was 0 for 5. He didn't look like the Juan Soto we're used to, but his name rings loud. In terms of the way the scouting report goes, when you were watching Anthony Volpi swing outside the strike zone consistently, that was also considering he had the lineup protection of Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. Ben Rice is going to benefit in this way. And you talked about it, Jake, and we really brought this home on our show. What we actually liked and the reason, it wasn't necessarily Ben Rice's numbers per se as to why we wanted him at leadoff. It was his discipline. And that discipline reeked of a veteran player. When you show you can swing at strikes, you can let really close pitches go, it reeks of consistent success in this league. And there are a lot of guys who have been in this league a long time that never master that. So we're going to ride this at the very least to the deadline. We need it in the worst way.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, Ben Rice is solidifying himself into this future because we've already heard, I don't care how long it's been or not long it's been, we've already heard from Hal saying he's going to cut back. There's going to be a cutback, and that we already know. We can put the puzzle pieces together. It's not hard unless you've been living under a rock. It's about Juan Soto. They're basically saying once we pay Juan Soto, hey, there you go. You got Judge, you got Soto, leave me alone. And look, I don't necessarily agree with that. You and I have talked about this. There's no salary cap. There's no excuse really. But
it's just money.
Okay, that's just the way he wants to be. Fine. If you're going to be like that, though, Ben Rice, you have 7 years of control with, essentially, right? 7 years until he's like a free agent. So there's no excuse for him not to be the go-to guy at first. Like, that means no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't want to hear anything about Anthony Rizzo, okay? You do not have to shove Anthony Rizzo in there because the reality is Anthony Rizzo at any point the last 2 years has not been better than what we're seeing out of Rice the last 10 games.
How about the defense, by the way? Ben Rice today, he had an attempt. So the defense overall has been really good from Ben Rice, but today there was a moment where he had a little in-between hop. You could see that there was clearly some more development there defensively that needs to happen, but I'll say this. Anthony Rizzo hasn't been very similar to kind of what you see out of DJ LeMahieu at third base, absent of today. DJ LeMahieu's almost been this sure-handed guy at third base, but he can't hit, right? That was the situation that we were watching. Rizzo defensively hasn't been the same player as he has been in years past. So the fact that that's the case, Ben Rice should have all the leeway in the world to get better over there defensively at first base. This is absent of the bat, but just working over there. I mean, you saw he didn't even have his own first base glove. I can't even remember who it was, but he was using somebody else's first base glove. It kind of goes to show you how much of a spring chicken he is over there. But you've got to love all the tools we're dealing with. We're dealing with an athletic player who seems to be progressing beyond his years. And so That's not happening often in Yankee land. It seems like we're relying maybe too heavily on veteran players to make an impact in the short term. We need some of these guys to hit if we're having expectation to go out there at 500, 600 million for Soto. I guess I'm not going to sit here and cape up for Hal Steinbrenner and saving money. But if you're going to save money, it better be to players who are high output young assets, not just going into the dumpster for veterans. So if we're going to hit on guys like this, you can go cheap for all I care. They just need to be performing.
I agree. And I mean, now, Ben Rice is at a 294 batting average. Okay. And he's got 4 home runs on the year. And I mean, the guy was just called up. He went 3 for 5 today, and he's got a 972 OPS. So the reality is, you could say it's a small sample size. He's had 51 at bats. In those at bats, he has 4 home runs, 12 RBIs, 8 walks, 9 strikeouts. He's not striking out a lot.
No,
okay,
it's still a small sample size for sure.
Small sample size, but he's not striking out a lot. Works counts. He looks like more of a veteran than the veterans on the roster do. And that's what I kind of I keep getting at. And, it's why instead of just being like, yeah, he looks solid. Like we didn't beat around the bush. Like we really dove into Ben Rice before he was called up. Let me make that very clear.
We did before it was fun.
Yeah. So we were on that train. And remember, we said he's not even on the 40-man roster. Just put him there. Just make it happen. Mm-hmm. They did. And I love that. And they deserve credit for that. They do.
They do.
But at the same time, it wasn't just, okay, Ben Rice gets called up and yeah, he looks nice and all that. And I've seen that all over social media. Yeah, he looks good. But no one was willing to make the dive, the deep dive. And so when you and I were talking about him, we're going through each at bat and we're watching a guy who is a kid who actually, and I said this, was 2 years behind what a normal 23-year-old, or he's a 25-year-old.
You're absolutely right. Yes.
Yes. He's essentially a 23-year-old because he lost 2 years due to COVID. And so to see where he's at with that, I'm just so impressed. I mean, from the minute he walked into an MLB batter's box, okay, he showed this confidence, this quiet confidence that nobody is going to dominate him. No one is going to, people are going to start fearing him. He is not going to fear anybody else. And we saw that. And keep in mind, what was the thing that we talked about? He's actually been hitting lefties well. And what was the thing that they said? Well, we don't want him in the lineup when there's lefties. He went up against Chris Sale and had one of the best, most inspiring at-bats that I've seen of anybody in this lineup.
Just a professional. Just an absolute professional in every way.
And Chris Sale's ridiculous, crazy delivery, that shit looks like it's being thrown right at you. So I was really impressed with his ability to kind of step up there, make things happen. And he did, and he continues to do it. And is he going to get into an inevitable slump? Yes, it's baseball. But I don't foresee him, with Volpi, right? I don't foresee him reverting back to himself because there is none of that, because himself, he's just a consistent guy.
Can I say something about that slump that you talked about?
Yeah.
Because I really agree with what you're saying. I really do. Mm-hmm. I agree with the premise. Now, every player, especially young players, there's going to be a point in time where the league makes adjustments. They go through that inevitable slump. But I will say this. Part of the reason why we're clamoring about a short swing, why we're clamoring on the Yes broadcast, Girardi sitting there talking and raving about, look how simple those mechanics are. Oh, man, that was a short swing. It reminds you of Freddie Freeman. Part of the reason that some of the most consistent hitters of all time, the Ichiros, the Tony Gwynns of the world, those players, the reason they're doing that, there's a decision that they're making. They're essentially saying, when you watch a player like Gleyber Torres, for example, and you have mechanics that are more fluid, they're based more on feel, it's a longer swing, maybe a little bit more uppercut, they can still be contributors, but there's more that can go wrong. And that's why having a player who has, I guess you can say, better mechanics, we can put it that way, it leads to more consistency. And I want to bring up some actual numbers as far as the Yankees' other guys, the guys outside of Soto and Aaron Judge, our hitters outside of those two, all players are hitting 202 combined for this New York Yankees team. League average is in a league essentially that doesn't care about batting average, I guess, right? 242. So you're talking about the difference of 40 points in terms of batting average. And frankly, we're not really leaving the yard at a torrid pace to make up for that gap in batting average. So let's be clear. The Yankees don't necessarily need Ben Rice to be a superstar throughout the deadline and the rest of the season. They need him to be above average. They need him to be a contributor. And if the Yankees have more contributors, we're not going to be looking at 4 wins in a month, okay? We're going to be looking at a winning baseball team again. So not everything is right and cool in Yankees land yet. There's still a lot of work to be done, but Ben Rice is a part of the solution. Players like him with high energy, high effort, okay, sure mechanics, young athleticism. The Yankees need more of that, okay? It needs to keep coming. So in my opinion, we really could benefit from riding this momentum of the young players, perhaps calling up another infielder to be at a potential, right? The potential contributor for this team, at least in the short term until the deadline. But Ben Rice is putting the world on notice because he doesn't just look like a contributor for this team. He looks like a cornerstone.
Exactly. And Red Sox fans today, when it was 4-3, had no idea what they were about to witness. I didn't know, and you didn't know.
I didn't either. No.
But guess what? Red Sox fans are now like, oh shit, we got to worry about Ben Rice now? Are you freaking kidding me? It's Judge, Soto, and now Rice is going to give us a hard time. I thought we had kind of a saving grace with Volpi not kind of reaching that potential in his second season. Looks like he's fallen off a cliff. And I've heard that. Like a lot of, AL East fans are like, thank God Volpi is not like Gunnar Henderson right now. Because, I mean, if Volpi was hitting like Gunnar Henderson with Judge and Soto and Ben Rice, this team would easily be a World Series they'd be the favorite. But the reality is,
yes.
The reality is, Gary, that's not what's happening. And that's the way it is. That's how you have to move forward. Volpi is still very young. He's going to figure it out, or he's not. But we're not going to make a distinction and basically say Volpi is, dead in the water because there's plenty of baseball left to be played. What we will, however, say, and it's not, I mean, we've never really flip-flopped on Ben Rice. Since Ben Rice has come to the league, like you said, his mechanics are really just simple. He doesn't do too much. His batting stance isn't like a giant leg kick like you're a pitcher and then, when you're having your bat like this or the Euclid thing like that. It's a very simple batting stance, very simple swing. His load, all of that, like it's all simple. And so, when you have that kind of, the simple nature of it, like same thing with like Rivera with his pitching motion. You have all these guys like, Frankie Rodriguez who had that wild, like speedy, really fast motion over his head and would just like pitch like a, psycho essentially. And then you have Rivera who just have a simple, he'd always pitch from the stretch.
Simple delivery. Just the more simple, the better. That's actually what Garrett Cole, by the way, if we're going to talk about repeatable mechanics, because that's really what this is. Garrett Cole, before he ever became a New York Yankee, right when he signed, the first thing he said, the guy that I actually really like to watch is Masahiro Tanaka. And everyone's like, what? Why? Right?
Well, Yankee fans
we all love. Yeah, right? We all love Tanaka. I mean, he was big time for the Yankees. And obviously, Garrett Cole being a Yankees fan growing up, that's part of the reason why he loved watching him. But the reason he actually gave? He said, I like watching him because he has repeatable mechanics. Repeatable mechanics. He does it over and over and over again. And so there's a higher baseline for what you can offer a team in terms of output when you don't get crazy with your mechanics. You can hit like Craig Counsell, but you can also hit like Freddie Freeman. Okay. Freddie Freeman doesn't do too much. 2 strikes, he's choking up. There's not really a load. He doesn't lift his leg. He's essentially trying to manipulate his body into the most repeatable action towards the baseball possible. And that seems to be what Ben Rice does. It seems to be the opposite, obviously, of what Gleyber Torres does. He's a high ceiling, low floor player. And right now, the floor for the Yankees is incredibly low from their utility players. So to get an output like this and to get a player like that, and by the way, something that was so crazy to me, and I was shocked to see this, by the way, I didn't know Ben Rice was going to be this dog. And not in terms of hitting, but when he when he does something on the field, he lets you know
He's
about
always
it.
like,
He's
let's
looking at our
go.
dugout like, let's go. Okay. Last year, Volpi was, somewhat of a contributor. He hit 20 homers, played really good defense.
But Volpi was never doing this, like looking over
No,
at the
Volpi
dugout,
was
like,
the
come
put
on,
my head down, I'm getting out the way. Ben Rice is in your face. And some
with the
people
baby
may not
face.
like that. I think we like it.
I think it's hilarious because the dude looks so young. I mean, I look young too, so I get the baby face thing all the time. But it's just hilarious watching him be like, "Let's go," and he looks like Tom Holland, like he's, and you're like,
hard,
"Wow,
it's hard." Yeah, it's hard to hear it. Yeah,
I mean, hey, I'm for it. Like again, we want fire, and this is why. I say this all the time. This is why prospects matter. This is why I'm not trying to trade prospects every which way. If there's a prospect that's hitting well enough in AAA, how about let's give him a shot before we just send him away for a middle reliever? I always joke about that, but it happens so often. I mean, think about this. Ezekiel Duran, I think his name was. That's the guy they sent for Joey Gallo. That guy was a stud for the Rangers the moment he got there, right? Now, I don't know what he's doing now. I haven't paid attention, but I keep forgetting his name every time we do a show. That's the guy they trade away. Oh, he's only like their 19th prospect. And he's playing instantaneously on the Rangers lineup. You know what I mean? Like, so these aren't just guys to just toss away. And I'm glad Ben Rice is succeeding, not just because he's a Yankee, not just because I like the guy, but also because of the precedent that this kind of sets. We have never seen the Yankees really do this. Like, Rizzo goes down. They even made a move for JD Davis, and they're sticking by their young gun. He was the 19th prospect, or he's in the top 10, top 20, whatever. The point I'm making here is Rice was playing well, but we've seen so many times. We joke about it. It's like you look at the minors and there's always a guy hitting 320 and he's hit over 300 like 3 years in a row in the minors. And they're like, yeah, he just is, he doesn't pick up sinkers well. And you're like, I don't give a rip. He's hitting better than 150. Bring him on up.
Yeah, you found one thing wrong with a prospect and then you talk yourself out of giving him an opportunity. All these players have flaws, okay? Like I said earlier, Mike Trout doesn't like
strikes out a lot.
Yeah. Mike Trout doesn't like fastballs up in the zone. Okay. It's not a secret, but guess what? There's all types of players who don't like certain pitches. I've had conversations with my dad. A lot of people would consider him in terms of the way he played, he's a Hall of Fame level baseball player. There were holes in his game that he's trying to make sure you steer away from. You want to throw breaking balls off the plate, and I don't do well with that pitch out there. Well, I need to make sure I get myself into counts where you can't go that direction. And it's what makes players all-time greats. Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, all these guys have holes in their game. They're just not very many. There are not very many. And frankly, it's your job as a baseball player or as an athlete in general to steer clear of what you don't do well, and you need to manipulate what you do well. And in my opinion, Ben Rice does enough well on the baseball field. I think he's athletic enough. His mechanics are shored up enough where you can say this guy has a real opportunity to be a contributor for this team long-term and cheap. So people can say all they want about Hal Steinbrenner being cheap, but I don't really care if he saves money. As long as the guy's contributing out there, I just don't want to see players that are on the field because they're cheap. And Ben Rice right now is arguably the third most valuable player on this roster, the entire team. And of course, that can change in a matter of a few days or a couple weeks. But as of now, he's the third guy to the two-headed attack that was Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. And at this point, we're essentially just sifting through the debris and finding contributors. We found one this past last few weeks in Austin Wells. And I want to transition to him. Austin Wells is not just in terms of results, but in terms of contact alone and the way he's developed behind the plate, analytically, his framing, excellent, right? And those are the things that we actually harped on for Trevino. But if your backup catcher is also an excellent framer, and then offensively, he's absolutely put it together these past few weeks, well, we're finding another above average contributor. So that average that I told you about earlier, that 202 average, that sticks out, right? Well,
Yeah.
if Wells is on the field, if Ben Rice is on the field, and not just on the field, but at the leadoff position, Volpi has much less pressure on him to get back to the means, which is the 6 or 7 spot in this lineup. It should serve him right long term, and it should serve this team well. But of course, we've talked about it. There are a couple of guys, I would probably say 1 or 2 names that I really want to see. I really want to see them on this big league team. And third base and second base are positions for this team organizationally that can get a lot better. Some of these players like DJ LeMahieu, I know he hit well today. Oswaldo hit well today. Overall, not very good offensive players. Defensively, DJ's a really good player, but I think we've got more in the tank in the system. I really do think it's time to give these guys an opportunity, and we have momentum today. You would have never thought. I literally said put Peter Popoff's spring water on us right now because we need it. We need a prayer. But this organization has momentum going into Sunday, and that's a surprise for us all. So I say we ride that momentum and bring up another young player and just make it a movement.
I agree. Let's stick with Wells. We'll get into that young player that, we've talked about plenty, but let's stick with Wells here because, I think the really important thing that people need to know is Ben Rice has played 17 games. Okay. Austin Wells, the last 19 of those games, he has a 295 batting average. His last 19 games, he has a 295 batting average. So he should be out there every day. If you want to catch Trevino for, God knows why, because he's such a liability in the run game. We saw it today. And I don't want to get too much on Trevino because I thought he had a good day today, aside from that. But if you do want to do that, and say you want to give Austin Wells a break, and look, we talked about the idea with Judge, for instance. The DH is available now. You can take the load off Judge. But you can take the load off Judge if Grisham is hitting. Grisham's not really hitting, although he had a double today. Grisham's not really hitting. He's still in the 150s, 160s, whatever.
Well, statistically, he's hitting 163. So you're going to try to find a reason to put a better bat in there. To say Austin Wells at the DH position is a much better offensive position, I guess you should say offensive player than Grisham, is just an understatement. The understatement of the year. I agree with this premise completely. The Yankees feel like right now with Trevino and Wells that every time one of them has to have a day off, they just have to be sitting down on the bench. I don't see that. I really don't. No. I just think in general, Austin Wells is bringing enough offensively. You've talked multiple times about the projection of a 20 homer plus player. Maybe that happens, right? I'm not going to give you that prediction. I'm not going to commit to that yet. But at the very least, he's an above average offensive catcher in this league and an excellent catcher. So I think we have something there in Austin Wells long term. Is he the Yankees catcher in 8 years? I don't know. But as of now, he's giving us every reason to believe that he's not good, not just good enough defensively, but that bat that we were all just figuring that, oh, he's just hitting into bad luck. Well, it's no longer talks. He's now reversed the course in terms of luck. Those balls are starting to fall. The exit velocity is still there. It's just going somewhere other than a glove. So those numbers, the 295, that doesn't surprise me at all. Does it surprise you?
No, not even in the slightest, because my biggest thing with Wells has always been, yes, he has bad luck. We talked about his expected batting average. I don't know if it was off air or we were on a show. I don't actually remember.
We were on the show.
He was okay, we were on the show. So he was over 240.
It was 254 was his expected batting average. And at the time, Trevino's real batting average was at 239. Okay, so this is just a few days ago. So those numbers have finally started to creep towards making sense. Okay, so because you can't watch a player hit the ball hard all day.
Yeah,
what's that?
That's how you can tell it's legit, because eventually you can't just hit the ball like you were just saying. You can't just hit the ball hard all day and just never have any sort of success. That's not real. Eventually it comes around. You can't have bad luck for an entire year. You have to think about how many months that is. That's not realistic.
I'm sure there's been players that just have horrible luck for an entire year. I don't know who those players are. Frankly, we don't really
There's
care.
No way. Just every single hit is just a line drive right at somebody.
Just everything. I guarantee you there's people who watch our show. these are nerds of the game. I mean, I like to think our audience is a bunch of nerds of baseball the way we are. And I'm sure they can come up with some names where you're like, yeah, that dude should have had a good year and he just didn't. Everything was laced right at a guy. And unfortunately for the Yankees, that was Austin Wells for the first month of the season. And it put us in this situation where I guess you can say there's some positives here to look at. Trevino was essentially exposed defensively. Okay. Not in terms of blocking or framing, but in terms of throwing. I genuinely had no idea until you text me that his hardest throw of the season was 77 miles an hour. And then I said, well, hold on a second. I don't want to clown on that number. Show me what league average and then the best in the league is. And you told me numbers that were almost up to 90 miles an hour. And so that's at that point, when we're talking about your average throw in terms of Trevino is 72 miles an hour. And Rauschman over there in Baltimore's average throw is 86. Yeah, there's absolutely an issue there. And Austin Wells was kind of on the back burner sharing time. Right now is the separation. I think we're at that point. Like you said, if Austin Wells isn't starting tomorrow at catcher, he should be at DH. I expect him to start tomorrow, but he's a can't miss offensive player until proven otherwise.
Yeah, and like again, we're not like if Jorge Posada was an option, you know, in his prime, you're taking Jorge over Austin Wells. I mean, right? Course. Like I would understand, okay, Jorge over Austin Wells, but right now, who do you have over Austin Wells? And I just feel like it's not just Austin Wells is not just a guy. He has a chance if you continue to work with him and give him these reps. He is going to be 25. He's going to turn the same age as Ben Rice in 6 days. So he's still very young. And a lot of years of control. And you have to understand something with baseball, with all the arbitration and things, like he's not going to get a giant deal. You're not going to have to pay him. You're not going to lose him if he pans out and Ben Rice pans out and Volpi pans out and you got Soto and Judge locked in long term. Well, guess what? You're starting to have almost your entire team locked in where you could have a freaking dynasty in the making here if they all pan out. And that is why I love the idea of roster building, but the right way, not just, you know, trading for everybody and just emptying the farm. If you stick with these guys, because part of the farm system, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, but part of the farm system isn't just everybody is fair game, because not everybody's going to get an opportunity. But the thing is, you have to pick correctly. And you don't have a ton, like, you have a lot of time to decide. You don't have to make a decision right then and there. Like, you know what I mean? But you do at some point have to make a decision. Like the Yankees made the decision between Volpi and Peraza. Peraza at one point people thought would play shortstop over Volpi. Okay. He was hitting better than Volpi. People were a little concerned. Then Volpi turned it on and then he got called up. And sure enough, Peraza's in the back burner, right? They chose Volpi over Peraza. There you go. Perfect example. They chose Ben Rice over TJ Rumfield. A lot of people had an issue with that. People in AAA, the fans of AAA, they're like, TJ Rumfield's batting over 300. Why can't we bring up Rumfield? He's been in AAA a lot longer than Rice. The Yankees saw Rice wasn't just another guy.
There were intangibles there.
Yeah, so they picked him over Rumfield. That doesn't mean Rumfield will never get a shot, but in all likelihood, that was his chance to be a first baseman, and they chose Rice. It happens in your own system. But it's important to realize 162 games. So guys get hurt. And then you have to make the most of your opportunity because other guys get opportunities. When you're not giving the kids the opportunities, when you have an injured Anthony Rizzo and you don't call up a Ben Rice, that's an issue. When you have players like DJ LeMahieu who aren't playing very well, when you have guys like Gleyber Torres who, you know, are struggling and also now he's hurt, this is the time to call up guys. And I mean, in my opinion, the Yankees have two middle infielders. I think they can play pretty much anywhere in the infield except for first. So you got second, shortstop, and third base versatility in these two guys. And these two guys are Yorbeat Vivas, who we continue to talk about, and Jeter Downs, a former Boston Red Sox, who I believe was named after Derek Jeter.
Jeter and the Downs funny is just thing bouncing about around all over the place.
He never gets a shot, but like if you look, like people are like, oh, he's terrible. So he was a top prospect, huge prospect for the Dodgers, right? They traded him as part of the Mookie Betts deal. And it just didn't work out with the Red Sox. And everyone just kind of gave up on him. Well, the Yankees, they brought him in. And then they actually DFA'd him. And then they got him back. And he actually played in the spring training, and he looked decent at times. But we're starting to see Jeter Downs is hitting for average now. He's starting to get that average up there. He's starting to hit with contact in AAA, and he is not on the 40-man roster. But Vivas, who they ironically got from the Dodgers, okay, they traded away Trey Sweeney, who was a third base option, shortstop when they drafted him. Trade away Trey Sweeney to get Vivas, and I believe Vivas was part of either the Caleb Ferguson deal or the Victor Gonzalez deal. Either way, they got him from the Dodgers. Vivas is killing it now, Gary. I keep telling people he had 2 injuries to start the year. Over his last 15 games, he has a 377 batting average, a 507 on base percentage, and a 698 slugging percentage. This is somebody who is literally on fire. So it is time, in my opinion, to ride the wave. Don't just look at this and be like, this is enough. We've already learned. And this is a big thing I want to point out, Gary. They had a 5 through 9 lineup resurgence the other day. And what I mean by the other day, it was the last time they won the game. Remember? It was a blowout. And it was
they
like
essentially got anything from the bottom, and then we just win.
So guess what happened after that? They didn't make anything out of that. They lost a bunch of games after that game. Remember? Like, oh, the Yankees back? I don't think they won a game after I said that.
No,
I don't think they won a game. So now they do the same thing again. The bottom of the order hit pretty well today. You know, we were laughing about it. We were texting each other like, dude, this pitcher is going after Soto like it's nothing.
Oh, yeah, just like we all thought. DJ LeMahieu and Oswaldo were just put the team on their back today. Ben Rice, DJ, and those guys. Yeah, I'm sure everyone thought that was going to happen. We're not going to sit here on this podcast and pretend, yeah, the Yankees are back. We expect to just show up and roll tomorrow. No, that's just not the way baseball works, okay?
No.
Role players that are underperforming all year can have really good days. That's still a possibility. So something to acknowledge there. The Yankees are not in fact back, but we are actually trending in the right direction, and it's showing you what the Yankees need more of, which is more youth, more athleticism, and frankly, less favorites. That's the main gist here. Don't tell me a guy's making $15 million a year as to why he should be in that position. Anthony Rizzo right now is on the IL, okay? He has a big contract. He's expected to be gone probably after this year. Ben Rice is over at first base. Do you expect to see Rizzo back over there due to favorites and contractual obligations? I shouldn't expect that. I should expect the best players to play. If Ben Rice is still contributing by the time that he's ready, Anthony Rizzo shouldn't be back at first base. It's just that simple. And if that type of mentality can sprinkle around the entire roster, we'll be just fine. But Jake, I want to make sure today that we talk about our pitching, because in general, our pitching has been putrid. Okay. It's been very bad.
It's been bad.
Obviously, after, I would say the pitching fell off the face of the earth when Clark Schmidt got hurt. Okay. And when you have that injury happen, at that same time, Garrett Cole was making his way back into the rotation with a pitch count. Now, it almost felt like the Yankees were behind the 8 ball the second that Garrett Cole came back. And in general, my opinion is that Garrett Cole has actually looked pretty good. Now, today, he went 4 1/3, gave up 7 hits, 4 earned runs. Very hot day at the stadium. He did have 8 strikeouts. But I will say this. I said yesterday that Devers would hit a homer in today's game. It's exactly what happened. But I'll say this. In general, it was a lot of soft contact, to which you mentioned before we went live. It wasn't a ton of hard contact. The usual suspects, right? Devers. So a few guys make hard contact. But of those 7 hits, maybe 4 or 5 of them were less than 75 miles an hour out to the outfield. Hardly hit at all. So am I freaking out about Garrett Cole? I'm truly not. I'm not worried in any way. His numbers career, healthy or not, are horrid against the Boston Red Sox. I just think this is a team that has his number, and we have to hope he goes back to the means his next upcoming starts. And then overall, from Tim Hill and Josh, is it Mezejewski? Spectacular. They were spectacular today.
They were awesome. Tim Hill, he needed this, and they looked really good.
They looked really good. They looked really good. They were throwing strikes. And when you have guys go 4 2/3, when you go 4 2/3 of 5K baseball, no walks. You're all around the strike zone for a team that, frankly, you saw how Boston was in that Garrett Cole start. I mean, they didn't want to strike out. They were slapping foul ball after foul ball, long inning after long inning. And these guys come out and make quick work. They just got right to work. They clearly knew they had a lead and then had an offense that had it going today. They did their job. So are these guys going to be Zach Britton and Aroldis Chapman from 5 years ago? No. But what we've seen is that these guys, I guess we see what the Yankees are excited about with them, and then we'll see how they progress off of that.
Matt Blake masterclass. This is what I talk about when I say Matt Blake is probably the most consistent coach. Anybody in the personnel, that dude just gets results. He really does. And when you and I were talking about, oh, the bullpen's really not that good. The Yankees have a weird conundrum. Their bullpen, more often than not, has stuff like this. And I think just, it's kind of the name of the game. Blame the bullpen if you lose late in the game. Like yesterday, I'm blaming Clay Holmes, but at the same time, score more than 3 runs. I mean, I don't know what else to say there. But I am blaming Clay Holmes. So I didn't really agree with like people on the internet saying like, well, I should just probably leave it at that. But I didn't agree with people on the internet saying that it was the whole me, not we thing. Because I saw a lot of people saying, he was like, yeah, we're trying to figure things out. People are like, no, mofo, you just blew the game. This is you, not them. And I'm like,
this is not a we situation. You just crapped your own pants. This has nothing to do with anybody else. Quite literally.
But at the same time, I didn't agree with like they were getting on him for that. But everybody uses the whole we thing. And, my thing is it wasn't Clay Holmes cost them the game, but he also didn't cost them the game because a lot of what happened was the Yankees didn't score the runs they needed to do to get to that point. I mean, the Volpi thing probably cost them the game, if we're being honest. The running
100%.
mistake.
I think it did. Yeah.
The whole point of it is that there are multiple variables, and I'm not going to just blame Clay Holmes. In the immediate, like right after the game when we're recording, I'm going to be a little pissed at Clay Holmes. When I have a chance to sleep on it, have more of a level head, like, you know what? Clay Holmes definitely deserves blame, but I'm not giving him the whole game. Like,
no, you guys all deserve blame. I'm going to talk about it, each and every one of you. Yeah,
exactly. Now, if Caleb Ferguson comes in, gives up a grand slam, and he walks 3 guys, grand slam, and they lose the game on a walk-off grand slam, well, when we started the inning, we were up by 3. There was nobody on base, and he walks all 3 guys and then gives it. That's on him. But
that's just on you.
Yeah, but I mean, 3-1, we've seen crazier comebacks before. 3-1 is a very manageable, you could come back from that.
It's a tough job, and it's also a pitcher that's pitching to contact. And a lot of our audience specifically, because we read every comment. I know people, because we're starting to get a lot of comments now. People probably think we don't listen to them. No, we do. We try to get to them. And Clay Holmes objectively is a player pitching to contact. Now, if you have the greatest cutter that's ever been in Mariano Rivera, sure, you can pitch to contact all you want. I totally understand that because you've cemented that pitch in history. There's not going to be another player for another 100 years that throws a cutter in that fashion. Now, Emmanuel Clase does a pretty good job, but he's also high velocity. This is a guy sitting 100 to 102 miles an hour. Different type of pitcher, right? Swing and miss guy, big slider. But when you're talking about Clay Holmes is he's a cardiac arrest waiting to happen. Sometimes he's dominant. The other times he looks like just some project that we brought in because of spin rate. And
Clay Holmes
it's not necessarily about movement. It's about results too.
Because I never had this feeling about Mariano Rivera. Okay, never. Clay Holmes is like watching your team in March Madness and they're down 2 and you see on the clock there's 5 seconds and they have the ball. So they could absolutely hit that 3-pointer to win the game, but you're kind of almost already like, I don't think we're going to win this game. Like, that's how it feels. Like when before Clay Holmes, he had the 0 ERA and everything. When he gets opened up, it's really hard for him to settle down. He's one of those very things have to be going well for him because
he doesn't have much resolve. I think what we're headed here is that if something goes wrong, if there's a bleeder single to right, he doesn't usually he doesn't settle down. He's not really a fireman out there in the bullpen. No. He's kind of one of those guys that just he'll show up to the mound. You're like, oh, this is Clay Holmes. It's just lights out. And then the next day you'll watch him and say, okay, we expect him to be like what he was yesterday. And he won't throw a strike for the first 6 pitches of the inning. And you say, oh, okay, well then I guess that's how it is, right? He doesn't usually just turn it on in the middle of a appearance. He's great or he's bad. And when you're talking about the New York Yankees in a win now situation, you want to really believe in the guy at the end of the bullpen. And that's something that was such a luxury for the Yankees. You're never going to find Mariano Rivera again. It doesn't exist. Okay.
No.
But it would be nice to have some level of assurance. And I guess just what the player's trying to do. Do I necessarily want to see my closer trying to give up contact that really struggles to throw strikes? He obviously lets guys on base with some level of frequency. I don't. That's just where I am on Holmes. Now that may turn around. He may start performing better, but just situationally, what he's attempting to do, I don't necessarily love his approach. I really don't. I love the stuff. I think his sinker's nasty. When his slider's good, it's great. But it's just too often that he's streaky. We're trying to manage how often he's pitching. It's just a whole circus. It really is. But Jake, there was actually something that happened in the 4th inning, and I was dying to talk to you about that situation because I'm actually not sure if it was a good thing or a bad thing in terms of management and coaching, because we're not going to talk. 95% of the show was positive, but there was one thing that happened in today's game where I was just like, what are we talking about here? And I want to know what you think. So we're in the 4th inning. Obviously, we didn't score. The 5th inning is where we went nuclear. We had Trevino hit a leadoff double. That's part of the reason why you were like, well, he was fine today, right? He hit that double, nice swing of the bat down the left field line, gets to second base. The New York Yankees bunt Oswaldo Cabrera, okay? And they move that runner over with nobody out over to third base. So there's now 1 out. You're essentially setting up the situation of DJ LeMahieu with a man on third base and less than 2 outs. So the job is this. You need to put the ball into the outfield so that we can either tag up or just score in general. Okay? Very clear. Do not strike out. Do not put the ball on the ground. I tweeted it. I said his one job is to not put the ball on the ground. Sure enough, DJ LeMahieu, he had a really good day overall today, but he puts the ball on the ground. I wasn't sure if that was really, like, we're struggling to score, but is it necessarily the best decision to try and manufacture a run by putting someone who predominantly struggles to put the ball in the air and forcing him to do so? It was almost like we were setting him up to just, I would say it's like you're setting him up to fail, but also it's like the easiest situation to succeed. So I'm honestly not even committing to it was a bad decision because those guys really aren't good enough to just drive in runs themselves. So what did you think about that decision?
Yeah, I mean, the way Cabrera hit today, I mean, obviously, you know, good stuff, but I didn't have an issue with it. I think what you're really hoping is that LeMahieu's just going to pop one up and it's going to go into right field or, you know, probably left field because you don't want the right field arm. And Trevino's going to tag up and score. But yeah, I mean, I didn't make too much of a deal about it. I thought for the most part, Boone managed a pretty good game. Was kind of in a tough position with Cole because, like you mentioned, guys were fouling off pitch after pitch. So, you know, I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, yeah, he only had, you know, he had the pitch count because, you know, my thoughts on the pitch count. He had 90 pitches, but at the same time, you know, gave up 7 hits. He had some hard contact. And I think, you know, Boone was kind of worried about, you know, essentially when Devers hit the home run, he was worried about maybe an unraveling. And it's like, hey, well, we just put together like a good day. Like, you know, this is a good day. Cole had some fluke. It's funny. The two runs that the Red Sox deserved to score both came off the bat of Devers. The other 2 were ridiculous. Like,
not a surprise in any way.
I mean, like, probably the exit velo was like way lower than like DJ LeMahieu. I mean, it was like that one dude hit one off like the freaking like handle. He hit it off the handle and he got an RBI.
It looked like something out of MLB The Show, but at the same time, this is the beauty of contact in this game. Sometimes this game isn't fair, but there is a reward and there's something that can be said for just putting the bat on the ball and having good at bats. At the very least, Boston was really good offensively at the beginning of this game. They were menaces offensively. I thought we did a really good job, by the way, of controlling Jarren Duran. This is a player that has imposed his will, frankly. And this is a guy who got off to a slow start in his career.
Did you
Most
see
people
that
said,
comment, by the way?
No, I didn't see the comment.
The comment in the comment section on our last video about Jarren Duran, I thought it was interesting. He struggled, and the Red Sox, even though people didn't want him to be sent down, they sent him down. And when he came back up, he was a completely different player, and everything that he struggled with. And so basically the commenter, and I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me right now. Otherwise I give him credit. But the commenter was essentially saying that's something that maybe you could look into with Volpi. And
I'm open for it.
I'm not going to lie. Like, today was a good day for Volpi. That double was huge. He got kind of screwed on the ground rule double. But I thought that was, and I don't mean to interrupt you because you were still going on about Duran. It was just something that I definitely wanted to bring to the forefront because, you know, you had mentioned it, like maybe sending down Volpi and whatever. I mean, I'm not going to lie. If Volpi can't build off this and we still see him, and like I said, that resistance point around 250, if he starts to go down to 240 and then 230, whatever, I'm fine trying it out because it's not like a punishment. It's, hey, I care this much about your production and your development that I'm willing to send you down to AAA, even though you have, because you know Volpi has the ceiling. When he is on, he's on. Like, he can go 3 for 5. He can hit a home run. He can steal 3 bases in a game. He's a Gold Glove shortstop. And it's hard to even justify sending him down because you don't want to lose that Gold Glove shortstop. But at the same time, if that's what's best for him, you have to make that decision. Now, I don't think they would. I honestly think he's totally like bubble wrapped. He is going to stay in the big leagues. He'll probably never see minor league again unless it's for a rehab assignment. But I thought it was a good comment because bringing up another player that went through a similar thing in Duran, who's become not only a good baseball player, he's become a great baseball player, but even more so, he's one of the best leadoff hitters in baseball, and he's got great speed, and that's what we were hoping Volpi would be. And, I mean, the reality is, as much as we love Rice hitting leadoff, Rice has a bat where if that continues, he continues to hit 3 home runs and stuff like that. Obviously, he's not going to hit 3 home runs every single game, but he shows that power. Then people are going to say, well, as great as this is, I think I want him cleaning up when Judge and Soto, you know, and that's why I brought up Wells the other day, because I think eventually his bat might be too powerful to have him at leadoff.
Yeah, no, I really agree with that. But just in terms of what Jarren Duran has done in Anthony Volpi, we'll just use the comparison because I think it's a perfect comparison. Yeah. Jarren Duran's a player who showed up to the big leagues and he didn't take the baseball world by storm. Nobody crowned this kid and said that he's going to be Mickey Mantle out there in left field. He's not going to be Barry Bonds or Ken Griffey Jr. No one gave these projections. They said he's got a lot of tools that we really like. We think he's a part of this future. That was it. He gets called up, has an underwhelming, first couple months in the big leagues. Sure enough, they say, we think this guy can still develop. Sending a guy down to the minor leagues isn't an indictment on your development. Sometimes it's the best possible thing to happen for you. Jackson Holliday was called up earlier this year for the Baltimore Orioles. Some people said it was too early. Some people said, well, give Baltimore credit. They're not going to mess around with service time. They're just going to bring the best players up when they're playing well. And I gave him credit for doing so. Long story short, he doesn't perform. They sent him down to the minor leagues. Do you think we're going to care that Jackson Holliday in 8 years, when if he's a perennial all-star, we're going to care about his send up, call down situation that happened in 2024? No one will care about that. So in my opinion, Jarren Duran and the way the Boston Red Sox handled that situation, it was just perfect. And part of what helps you is that you don't give the Red Sox, Red Sox Nation, as they call it, a sneak preview and get them so overly hyped over a player because of, let's say in Volpi's case, he hit 20 homers his rookie season. He played Gold Glove defense. He won a Gold Glove. So there was a lot to project there. There was a lot of excitement. And also, we cannot forget this. The psyche for Anthony Volpi in terms of confidence has to be high. You won a Gold Glove in your rookie year. These guys are human beings. He feels like, well, I'm living up to the bill here. You fast forward to this offseason, he says, I want to flatten out my swing. That 205 batting average, what you guys said I needed to improve at. He hit all spring training. He hit at the beginning of this season. He was hitting like 295 up to 300. And we said, he's here. He has arrived. Now what happens when you say a player's arrived and then you send him back down to the minor leagues? Well, there can be some ramifications to that. Now, do I think there would be ramifications? I personally don't. I think he's an adult that would take it on the chin. But a lot of people are going to perceive this and say, sending down Anthony Volpe for some short-term development so that we can have long-term success with this asset, they would see that and say, it's just too much of a risk. So I agree with you completely. I don't think the Yankees do it, but it is possible that that's the best possible way to unlock what it is that we were projecting out of Volpe.
I agree. And I mean, it's not, again, this isn't us flip-flopping. Just because early on in the year we felt like he had found himself and, you know, he had arrived, we're adjusting to new information. That's really what this game is all about. That's what this game of covering sports is all about. I mean, there are people that flip-flop takes. That's why I don't like saying how everything is a take. You know how like take culture, everything, oh, that's a bad take. No, dude, I'm just honestly taking something that is happening right now, and I'm relating it back to how I felt earlier and admitting that I thought Volpe was going to be like, you know, potential, well, definitely 270 this year, down the road 300 hitter. Yeah, he'll have 20 home runs, be around, but have a little bit more pop than Jeter did. Gold glove shortstop, and could be the perfect leadoff hitter for the New York Yankees. And right now, you know, the double today was great and you saw some really good things. But at the same time, like, and again, I don't make too much of a deal about it, but I thought the comment was really telling because we saw Duran today. We saw Duran yesterday. We see Duran all the time because, you know, like I actually do. Well, I'll watch other games every now and then. And, you know, Duran has always stood out to me. I mean, I used to play fantasy baseball and he was always on my team. I just love the way he approaches the game. I think he's a great leadoff hitter. And to be honest with you, the Red Sox are kind of exciting, even from, you know, a Yankee fan standpoint, to see what they've done, just bringing up farmhands. And Casas is not healthy, so he's not even available. And he's one of their, you know, one of their big guys. And, you know, Mayer's also one of their big guys. And
you know who I see in Jared Duran, by the way?
Who's that?
I see Carlos Beltran.
That's interesting.
That's the player I see. We're talking about a player, and this is the reason that everyone's so high on him, is the combination of power and speed and just his ability to hit triples. He steals bags, pretty good out there in the outfield. I mean, is he going to be Carlos Beltran, a borderline Hall of Famer? Who knows, right? I mean, we're at the beginning of his career, but the tools are there. The tools for Volpe, the tools for Ben Rice, all that stuff's there. But, you know, the tools are for the toolbox, right? You don't win games with the toolbox. You've got to go out there and put it together. Now, some of these guys have more flaws than others. Right now, I would say Anthony Volpe has a clear flaw, and it is plate discipline. His ability to differentiate when to swing, when not to. He's getting himself in situations he frankly shouldn't be in just by deciding something that he shouldn't be deciding on. You get a 2-0 pitch, a player throws a borderline strike, and you're offering at a borderline pitch 2-0. We see this often. Yankees fans, especially our fans who watch this podcast, we watch it all the time. Anthony Volpe will be swinging at pitches and just hacking at pitches, frankly, that didn't need to be swung at. So in his situation, and we're projecting Volpe 2-3 years down the road, if he's still poor at what he's poor at today, this prospect has failed. Okay? Protecting him in all these trades and all that we did. I'm not saying it was the wrong move. I'm still saying it was the correct move. But if he doesn't get better at some of these flaws, and he has to get better at it somewhere, whether it be minor leagues or the big leagues, we've got to get real honest. If these don't improve, it's a failure. Being a Gold Glove shortstop, hitting 245 and hitting 14 homers in a year is not a top prospect level player. That's not going to excite the Yankees fan base as maybe not being the next Derek Jeter, but being the long-term shortstop of the Yankees. No, that's got to get better. So I like where your head's at in terms of what to do with Volpe, because at least the wheels are spinning. I feel like he's just kind of locked in the position that he's in. Maybe rightfully so, but right now that projection and being honest about what needs to improve, those need to start coming closer together, because we're in a position now where young players are coming up from the system in Ben Rice, and they're giving us an output right away. An output, frankly, that we never saw out of Volpe, because let's not forget, Jake, I was complaining complaining. People can call it negative all they want, but I was complaining when Anthony Volpi was hitting in April, and I said, well, let's pump the brakes just a second. I was excited, but I was always mentioning his plate discipline. It was the most important thing of his development, in my opinion, after his swing. And long behold, the swing improved. It's kind of regressed a little bit, I think we can all admit, but that plate discipline has gone nowhere. It hasn't improved even marginally. So if that can improve, there will be a lot to be excited about in terms of Anthony Volpi, but he hasn't given us any reason to believe that that part of his game's improved.
No, I hear you. I don't want to go too negative because, that ground rule double did tie the game today and
it was
start
huge.
that crazy
Absolutely.
inning. But yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think just the comment, I just wanted to, because, there's going to be times, Gary, where we get comments. And I mean, we're getting over 100 comments now a video, it seems like. And, when we see something that really stands out, that could be a topic, we want to bring it up. So I wanted to bring that up again. I wish I had it in front of me so I could see.
I know it's a shame we couldn't give him credit.
I know. You know what? I'll try to figure it out while we're wrapping this up. I'll try to find it real quick. But Verdugo home run, as we're wrapping this up, the Verdugo home run was huge. Really, I love that.
How'd you like that trot, by the way? It took him 35 seconds to get around.
I know people have issues with that. I truly don't care.
Funny.
Yeah, I mean, I truly don't care. At the end of the day, people are going to have issues with, whatever. For me, he earned it by hitting a home run. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
There.
Like,
yeah.
So, that's how I see it. He earned it by hitting a home run. He deserves that. And he's going to get hate. I mean, this is the team that traded him away. So this is a rivalry. And he loves being a Yankee, and I think he just really wanted to kind of stick it to him a little bit. And look, I have no issue with that because guess what? The thing that happens when you want to stick it to him, and I love that Michael K brought this up, is like Garrett Cole, and he wasn't really saying he wasn't scolding Garrett Cole. He's like, you can't get mad at Devers for his bat flip or throw or whatever if, what just happened with Verdugo. And by the way, this is what makes Michael K one of the best. Because the way he called that Yoshida play last night, that was emphatic. That was a big moment in the game. Obviously, a huge moment in the game. And he's the Yankees broadcaster, but he's not biased. He still gives the same emotion to both sides. And this is another example. He wasn't just because you'll get Yankee fans will say, I don't want my Yankees broadcaster defending. Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't want my Yankees broadcaster turning me into somebody that I feel like I'm just in an echo chamber. And I feel like Michael K does a really good job of making sure we're not in that.
And we think Michael K doesn't know what he could be to make some of these buffoons on Twitter more excited about his broadcast. Of course he knows. He knows that he can just go on and on and on about Grisham and Volpi and Verdugo and Judge and Soto and how excited he is and how happy he is. He's super loud when they hit a homer and just quiet as a mouse if Jarren Duran goes out there and legs out a triple. Well, yeah, you might make those people excited, but he wouldn't be himself. And when we were talking about SNY and I said that I like their broadcast, but a lot of people mentioned that it seems a little bit biased, right? And that's their harp on that broadcast. Well, you don't have that problem at Yes Network. So
they're very
people
biased.
can have their opinions about the broadcast. What's that?
They're good. They're good, but they're biased. And I think Michael K does a really good job.
Yeah.
Because Michael K, you can hear it. He is a Yankee fan. He's been a Yankee fan his whole life. But when push comes to shove and he has to make that call, a home run for Yoshida. It was a big moment. He's reacting. So I like the way he does things. And sometimes I didn't want to hear, I'll never forget when John Sterling, we're on the radio and they're playing against the A's and Jermaine Dye hit a home run and he's like, it is high, it is far, it is gone. And I had just turned on the radio and it's a home run for Jermaine Dye. And my dad's like, the Yankees got Jermaine Dye? And he's like, and it's 4-2 Athletics. And we're like, wait, come on, John, whose side are you on? But again, it's that that passion. So I'll take that. I mean, it, did get a little annoying on the radio because you turn on the radio and you're like, oh, awesome. Is there a home run about to happen? Because, just on the road and you're like, a home run for Jermaine Dye. Then you're starting
he's a Yankees. He's also a baseball fan. He knows that not just Yankees fans are watching that broadcast. And what's so ironic, I mean, there are a lot of people who are blacked out. They don't get to watch the game. So
people don't even get
you're gonna have to watch it on radio.
Michael K should be calling all of the ESPN baseball games. 100%. They asked him to. They wanted him to. He stated yes.
Yeah, they gave him the they put the Brinks truck in front of him, and he still said no. I think Michael K financially is doing okay for himself and his family. So I don't know if ESPN wrote a big enough check, or in general if he would have done it anyways. Because in my opinion, Michael K is probably doing everything he wants to do with his baseball ventures. And so I think ESPN
yes.
Right. I mean, I just think that he has the exact job that he wants, and he gets to do it his way. Some people hate it, and he's perfectly fine with that. And there are a lot of people who love it, and I'm one of those people. I know you are too.
Oh, yeah. Like when he mentioned Spencer Jones the other day, I didn't give him credit for that. So good on him. But I did find the poster. Perfect. Marco SC7375. Look, for example, the Red Sox. They sent down Jarren Duran when he was playing as bad as Volpi. No one felt sorry, but he went down. Came back up, and now he is, to me, one of the best leadoff hitters in all of baseball. He's literally at second base at least every time if he gets a hit or walks. I would be in the discussion of sending him down and bringing back a stud at short. Then if Volpi gets better, bring him back up. He will learn. There's no crying in baseball.
So there is one catch to this, though. There's a catch. There's a catch to this comment, and I just thought of it now. I agree with the premise, okay? The premise is in exchange for, like, rather than not having him up here and dealing with all the hype and the hoopla of being a top prospect, sometimes the best thing to do is to send a top prospect down and allow him to develop further, right? And I agree with that premise. But you also have to remember, you can't do that in a win now season.
No, I know.
The Boston Red Sox weren't in a situation to win Jack diddly doodah. Okay, so sending down a top prospect in exchange for development, I think, given the situation Boston was in, was obviously a no-brainer decision. And thankfully for them, they made that decision. The Yankees are in a situation where if you lose Volpi, we're losing his glove at shortstop, not just a bat that's not hitting. Okay, so we might upgrade offensively, but how much worse are we getting at shortstop? It might be drastic.
No, I agree. That's why I would say it's not going to happen. But I thought it was good enough to bring it up because I thought it was a good comment. It was well thought out, and we appreciate that because, like, it's not just some of the comments we get. People telling us that they're unfollowing because we say that like Ben Rice is going to lead off. And
they never followed us in the beginning. They just
they never unfollowed and they like us and they just were mad at a comment that we made, which happens a lot, believe it or not. People were mad about my F-bomb the other day. So
should we put the little who is it? Pat McAfee, where he puts the little screen up that says, "Hey, we do curse on this show. It's because that's how adults talk." It's the funniest tag ever. Now I hardly curse on the show. Like I don't curse very often when the show's off, but it is really funny that someone can watch an hour and 20 long podcast and be like, yeah, I love 99% of what they said, but he said the F-bomb at the 88th minute of the show. I just can't be a part of this. It's like, what world do you live in, bro?
Oh, I know. But hey, you know what? If that person's still watching, we appreciate you regardless. And that's what I'll say. I don't mean to clap back at people that are still watching. It's like the people that they came and they saw and then they went because they were like, they commented something like, oh, I unfollowed. And it's like, okay, well, if you're gone, then I'm just going to kind of make fun of it. But if you're still here, we're all good. So yeah, it's been a fun episode. We don't want it to be an hour or 2 hours or whatever. It's over an hour, but just a lot of fun about this game right now.
Great game.
Just like 14-4 against your rival Red Sox, a team that now, has 48 wins on the year. You have 55. So they've done a really nice job with kind of a makeshift roster. Again, Casas and Mayer are not in the lineup. So that is, to me, that's kind of huge, And so I think like what the Red Sox have been doing is really impressive because like some of their best prospects aren't available. And, they've been really hot. And so to see the Yankees do what they did today, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs, And once again, the bottom of the lineup, Volpi, and you got Grisham and LeMahieu. I mean, Gary, to wrap this thing up, 6 for 10 with runners in scoring position today. LeMahieu was 2 for 3. As much gripe as we give him, 2 for 3. Volpi was 1 for 1. Wells was 0 for 1. Cabrera was 1 for 1, and Rice was 2 for 4. I'm not going to get on Wells because that walk when the bases were loaded was absolutely huge. So
Luis
the
Gil
reality,
by the way, tomorrow. And so Luis Gil's gone a total of 9 innings pitched his last 3 starts. Okay.
Something's got to give. He's going up against Cover Crawford.
Yeah, that's not very good. That's not much length. And for a team, frankly, that's trying to find answers, we got a few answers, at least somewhat today out of the bullpen. They look really good. But you can't go out there and give us 4 against Boston tomorrow. That's just not good enough. Now, this is a player that we said he's pitching like an ace. Well, there needs to be a middle ground here. You can't pitch like an ace and then look like a 5-starter. So let's go out there, command the strike zone. The fastball, the numero uno, has got to be in the best possible spot in the strike zone. You need to hit locations. If he does that, he's going to be successful. If he doesn't, it's going to be a long day. Boston in general, they do damage against poorly thrown and poorly executed fastballs. And hopefully we don't see that tomorrow.
Yeah. Ride the wave. That's all I can say. The last time they won the game, it was a blowout. We were talking, Yankees are back. They did not build off that. Okay. I want to see them build off it. Yeah. I want to see them build off it. I want to see them call up Vivas. I think if anything made sense today, looking at what Rice is doing, doesn't that just make you want to call up a prospect even more and see what else you have out there? I mean, he only played 11 games in AAA. So hopefully they call up Vivas. I wouldn't be against calling up, Peraza either, but I've already just kind of waved the white flag on that. I think they're just going to ruin him. That's just the way it is. Jeter Downs as well. I mean, obviously Spencer Jones. I didn't stop that crusade. I'm just right now, I don't think that they're going to do it, but I still think they should. And, that's really, those are my thoughts. I mean, I think it's really important right now to see, where Gleyber Torres is at. I think there's a chance he could go on IL. I think they're kind of slow playing that news. And just because, he got hurt, maybe he's okay now, doesn't mean he's not going to re-aggravate something. So
it does mean he's pretty much untradeable, doesn't it? An injured player in a contract year. I mean, who trades for that? I mean,
the Marlins, because they're obsessed with him.
That's just pointless. If you're obsessed with him, just sign him this offseason.
You know what's funny? The definition of that is like, you know what? I love my ice cream. I love mint chocolate chip ice cream. If that fell on the floor won. I'm not eating that off the floor.
No.
But the Marlins
having a horrible year. He's hurt. And by the way, we were thinking that he was turning the corner offensively. He kind of hit a cold streak again.
Yeah.
Hurts his groin, and not just a groin injury. He already had it. So this is an issue for Gleyber Torres. So perhaps this has been an issue kind of all year, and maybe he's just been dealing with this. But I mean, we're not going to make excuses for the guy. But to trade for that asset would just be borderline foolish on Miami's part.
Well,
and this is not a
Miami
cheap player.
would do
It's a player making $10+ million a year. So, possibly making him untradeable. We're going to see what happens with him.
Yep, Miami would do it. I don't know. I like kind of making fun of Miami because they had all these superstars and they just let them all go. So,
well, they wanted to let him go. So, is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you get what you deserve. See, I didn't say the F-bomb there.
Growing. Channel's growing and you're growing.
How about that? I normally never curse. It just, there was a point to it. The emphasis. I had people text me and be like, I loved that part in the show. I was like, okay, well, I knew a lot of people that didn't like that part in the show. It is what it is. Appreciate you guys for hanging out with us for over an hour. We'll be back tomorrow. This is coming out a little bit earlier, so very curious to see how well this does because we just had our best show again. It just keeps happening. Almost, it's going to be around 6,000 views when it's all said and done. So really appreciate you guys. 1,200 subs, which I feel like the other day we were just talking about getting to 1,000 because we literally were like 2 days ago. So we really appreciate you guys again. And just to throw it out there, if you haven't already, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Also be sure to follow us on all social media at JK Bogan, at Gary Sheffield Jr., and at Yankees Unloaded. Last thing I'll say, Gary, I'm looking at the thing over here on my monitor. The subscriber bell notifications. Shout out to you guys. Typical on YouTube, 10% to 30% have subscribers who have all notifications on for channels. Okay. We have 13.9% of subscribers that have notification bells on.
Oh, it tells
us
that. I didn't know that.
Yes. So that's 153 of our subscribers that have all notifications on. They get it as soon as we drop a video, boom. If you want to be one of those people, make sure to turn it on. If you're on, Apple iPhone or Android, be sure to go into the app. Make sure, you have all those things taken care of in the settings. But also want to point out the last 7 days, 70.6% of our watch time has come from non-subscribers. Only 29.5 has come from subscribers. So if you are one of those people who's watching a long ass time and enjoying, and you didn't know you could hit the subscribe button and never miss another show, there you go. It's a subscribe button. Again, 1,200. Who knows? I'll, snap my finger. You
finally have some entertainment that you don't have to pay for a subscription. So in our opinion, you should subscribe to this show. It doesn't cost you a damn thing, and it makes us money having you be here. So everyone wins.
Everyone wins. That's going to do it. We appreciate you guys.
Yep. And skip our ads and like our video.